Let's talk about the illusory nature of thinking. In this video, I'm going to make an argument that thinking, or what some people refer to as thought, itself is an illusion. You never experience what you think. I'll say that again. You never experience what you think. So to think is to think in categories. And categories are obviously based in language for the most part. So as John Grinder, the linguist and co-founder of NLP or neuro-linguistic programming used to say, when we use language, we impose uh, distinctions or categories onto the flow of experience which aren't inherent in the flow of experience. So if I say the word I, there's something that belongs in the category of I, and per definition there has to be something which is not I. If I take the category of, let's say, ownership, there's something which belongs in the category of ownership, and which per definition is not part of the distinction of uh, ownership. Or if I take Norway, there's some things which are part of Norway and some things which are not part of Norway, right? So to think is to think in categories, and categories are based in language. So how is this relevant? Well, a lot of the people that I see come into me and they say, I experience anxiety. And they're convinced about this. But the reality is, you never experience anxiety. You never have, and you never will. And some of you might be shaking your heads, going, "Are you on something? Are you nuts? I'm crippled with anxiety." Well, the thing is that anxiety is a concept. It's an idea, right? So if you try to right now experience the concept, experience anxiety itself, and go ahead, if you try to do that, you'll notice that in your experience, it's nowhere to be found. Now, you may object and you may say, but I have a beating heart. My heart's racing like crazy. Or I have these intrusive what if catastrophic thoughts. Or I experience my throat tightening. Because yes, these are examples of the category, right? That you kind of think belong to the category. The racing heart or the tightening of the throat or these thoughts. But these thoughts all seem to imply a thing called anxiety. If you try to look for the thing or the concept anxiety itself, you'll notice that it's nowhere to be found. Another example, and there's freedom in realizing that, because it helps you reconnect with experience. Or if we take a concept such as ownership, for example, if you right now try to experience the the concept of ownership itself, it's nowhere to be found. It's an idea. Now, what I might say is, but this computer that I'm talking into, I own that computer, or I own that car outside, or I own this sweater that I'm wearing. Yeah, these are examples within the category, right? But if you look for that which the category refers, ownership, and you try to experience ownership itself, it's nowhere to be found. Same goes with things like trauma. People might come in and they say, I have trauma or I experience trauma. You never experience trauma. Trauma is an idea. It's a concept. Now, it's a concept that frames your experience in a particular way and that trains your mind to make sense out of experience in a particular way. But if you look for the trauma itself, the concept itself, it's nowhere to be found. Now, people might say, well, but I'm not able to have close and intimate relationships, or I can't trust someone, or I have a numb feeling in my body, or I'm hypervigilant, or I have these particular memories. Well, these are all a bit like with ownership and anxiety. They are seemingly examples of, but if you look for if you look for the alleged trauma that all these examples seem to imply and refer to, it's nowhere to be found, right? And then you can ask yourself, is this particular concept, this particular way of categorizing experience, a useful one? So this is one way in which thought or thinking itself is an illusion, in that you never experience what you think you experience. Meditate on that. Really meditate on that. Here's another way in which thought or thinking is an illusion, and that is that the fact that when it comes to alleged events, when we worry or we ruminate, there's a saying in cognitive psychology that worry, these what if thoughts that refer to a future, is anxiety's best friend. Here we go again, that particular concept. And that rumination, these more, what's the meaning of this and why me and why did that happen, is depression's best friend, right? Now, here's the funny part. The fact that you think something is evidence that you don't actually experience it, right? So last night I went swimming. I did 45 minutes of swimming, and then I had some sauna afterwards, right? But the fact that I think that now and I tell you about it is evidence that I'm not experiencing it. This weekend, I might be doing downhill skiing. On Friday, I'm doing Muay Thai sparring, as usual, hopefully. But the fact that I imagine that doing Muay Thai sparring on Friday or going skiing on Saturday is my evidence that I'm not experiencing it. So we seem to be experiencing a past or a future, and most of our thinking, virtually all of it, revolves around a past or a future. But if you try to find a past event or a future event in your actual experience, you'll never find it. I'm not saying that the ability to seemingly construct a future or past isn't useful for consequential thinking, for reflection, for planning, all sorts of stuff, for being able to meet someone on Zoom at a particular time. But experientially speaking, you never experience a future. You never experience a past. You don't experience a future event or a past event. There's enormous liberation in realizing that. Now, the ultimate thought-created illusion is this sense of a thing like self. We're very often in here behind the eyes, looking out at a separate world. So it often seems as if there's this thing like self in here that generates thoughts and makes decisions and has agency and has free will and so on and so forth, right? But if you look for yourself, if you look for that very self, you'll never find it because it's nowhere to be found. It's an idea or a set of ideas. Now you might say, well, hold on, I love ice skating, or I work as a police officer, or I'm an extrovert, or I love my kids, or I I'm a caring, compassionate person, or I have these feelings. All of these examples uh, seem to imply a self, which they refer to. But if you actually look for that self, and you can do it right now, if I were to ask you, where are you? Most of you will probably say, well, I'm here, in this body, you're over there, and I'm here. Of course, that itself is a thought, right? But if you really look, if you really go, well, where am I really? And you scan the alleged body, you scan the sensations of the chest, you scan the sensations and the thoughts that seem to be in the head. They're actually not, but seem to be in the head. You'll notice that the very sense of a thing like self, which makes decisions and chooses and has free will, when looked for, it's actually nowhere to be found. But if you take the words I am and you feel into it, there is what we could call aliveness or being or consciousness, that just the fact of life itself. And if you take those words and you kind of trace it back to that which it refers to, you'll notice that consciousness or being or life itself has no location, it has no objective qualities, it doesn't weigh anything, it has no center point, it really lacks nothing. So one word for that could be peace itself. Now, there seems as if there's such a thing as thoughts and feelings that somehow stand out. But if you take the very, call it experience of just being or consciousness itself, you just trace that back and you start to look at thoughts and feelings, you'll notice that the thoughts and feelings that emerge are at no distance from consciousness itself. And they're not made of anything but consciousness itself. And you can't really find it or find them. They don't stand out, so to speak. So in this sense too, thoughts or thinking is itself an illusion. And you might ask, well then, what is real? Well, I'll leave you with this. Ramana Maharshi used to say that that which is not present in deep sleep is not real. I'll leave you to meditate on that. Anyways, I hope this very video was thought-provoking. And if my ideas resonate with you and you'd like to explore whether you and I could be a good fit in terms of working together, doing mentoring, or doing change work or client work, you can reach me at provocativehypnosis.com. As always, thanks for listening.